Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. and the United States, looking around the globe in 143 different nations, looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. As we go towards 2050 and we have 2 billion new citizens that will be joining us to make almost 9 billion souls on the planet, we've been talking about how to provide the water, the food, healthcare, education, all the various infrastructure that's needed. One of those areas, of course, is transportation. How are we going to move 9 billion people around the planet that seems to be very crowded today with 7 billion? Someone who's an expert in talking about this is sitting right beside me, Dr. Ping He, who is the president of the International Fund for China's Environment. Been with us before, and Dr. He, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be back again.
It's always good to have you, and let's come up with this first slide because we have some really excellent slides and photographs that you shared with us, Dr. He. And tell us a little bit about your organization and the origins of the IFCE.
Oh, we are with the International Fund for China's Environment. It's a non-profit international organization based in Washington, D.C., and mainly help promote U.S. and China environmental changes in the area of policy, advising, NGO training, and technology exchanges.
Well, and you've been around for quite a while, and I know about the NGOs and the evolution of NGOs in China over the years. And as I've told you before, you're a real pioneer in doing this kind of work, and it's just fantastic the kind of information that you're providing, because you're really providing the world with information about China, but on the other hand, you're taking the world into China through your organization. Tell us about how you came up with this idea of this two-way exchange, China to the world, world to China.
Oh, it's important because most of our members, the initial founder of this group, has been educated in both China and U.S. and Europe in the West, developed countries.
So they're already internationalized and aware of both parties before they even join with your organization.
Right. So in the 90s, we observed the extent of environmental damages happened in China. And of course, we know in the Western countries has been experienced this before in 60s, 70s, and we thought China should be learned from this lesson and reduce environmental damages. Once the environment is polluted, and it's going to take a lot to wipe them out and to clean them out. So that's what we think we should be able to help China to move away from traditionally pollute first and clean second, that kind of old path.
Yeah, I think it's very important, and I know that with the information, the two-way exchanges, the seminars that you're providing, it's really excellent. And the number of groups that you bring to the United States and other countries in North America and Europe is really important as well. Tell us a little bit about the urban development and transportation that's going on within China.
Urban development in China is phenomenon. In last 30 years, 3 decades, China mobilized probably several 100 million people to urban area. So last year, the first time China's urban settler has exceeded people in the rural area.
So you're really following the trends on the earth. Now it's about 54% of the world's population in urban areas. So China then is mirroring that type of concentration in urban areas. Okay.
Right. Now China is about 51% of people in the urban area compared to the people in the rural area. Cities grow very fast. China have about 659 cities, largest cities. have more than 200 of them have more than 1 million people.
Over 200 with 1 million people.
Right.
That's a lot of folks.
Yeah, that's about 30 have about 8 million people, and 13 have more than 10 million people.
That's an incredible
So that's
number of people concentrated in the cities.
In mega cities.
And that's throughout China.
Throughout China.
Right.
Right.
Because I know that there's many of the Western areas that traditionally have been very open areas now because of incentives and also more Western companies moving in to invest in the Western areas, that the concentration of people is going up, actually, even the Western provinces of China.
Yeah, right. So China's city getting big and big. So that's adding the pressure to the public transportation system. As you mentioned, we need to mobilize those people, in the city for them to go to work and then the traveling. And so China has been put a public transportation system as a priority for the development, because of the rapid growth of the urban area, the huge population, and the environmental concerns, and the fuel efficiency, those kind of factors. And so China has been put this public transportation system as priority of the city growth. So it combined, metro, bus, highway, railroad, high-speed railroad. So you have seen China. If you visit China recently, you'll see the highway almost everywhere. High-speed rail is reached to the main cities, and but still it's still very crowded, because it just grow too fast.
Well, I tell you, it's just amazing looking at the infrastructure, and I'm going to back up on 2 of these slides, because when you look at this, you're saying, now this is China. There's 1.3 billion people in China. Where's all the people? And it was amazing to me the times that I visited there, is that even though you have that concentration of people, being a very large nation, it doesn't seem that close. Where if you go into a place like Japan or Korea, Vietnam, they actually seem more crowded, and per capita based on the land area, actually they are more crowded than China. So it's amazing the openness that you have in the country. Tell us what we're looking at here. I know that you have a very extensive railroad system and road system. And then also rapidly expanding there is the airlines. Moving, because I've used them a number of times. Very efficient.
Yeah, China has been, built highways and railways and high-speed railroad in the last a couple of decades. Basically, there are 2 models for transport system in the world. One is U.S.-based. It's based on personal vehicle and road reach to almost every house, villages and house. And another model is Europe and Japan systems, is based on the public transport systems. So the public transport system has advantage of land efficiency. You can use much less land to mobilize huge populations. Also, another factor I mentioned is environmental factors, air pollution. Right now, due to those rapid growth of vehicles, cars, private cars, China's air pollution, those vehicle emission has contributed 60% of air pollution, for the urban area. So it's a bigger factor. So
they're trying to ameliorate having all this concentration as far as the pollution is concerned from transportation, but also buildings, as we've learned in the United States. In many places, almost 47%. The emissions are coming out of the structures themselves, either the housing or the public buildings. So,
public building is another. Building is another
issue.
Another issue of energy efficiencies, improve those energy consumptions for the public buildings.
Well, looking at the transportation systems that we have here right in front of us, I know having traveled in China. My first time actually dealing in China goes all the way back to 1973.
Oh, that's quite
a long time ago. So there's been a lot of changes in your country over that time. But I know that you're trying to match what's going on in the world, but actually you want to exceed. So you're taking the technologies, the ideas from around the world, and then you're taking them and developing them on a local basis. So tell us a little bit about the technology that we're seeing here with these the trains and aircraft, and how that's impacting efficiency and also the reduction in emissions within China.
Yeah, this high speed railway is really wonderful thing happening in China. I rode this high-speed railroad a couple years ago from Guangzhou to Changsha, where my hometown. That route used to be taking about 12 hours.
12 hours?
Yeah, I was writing in 1987, it's 12 hours. Now it's about 2 hours.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
That can be just, breakfast, then go lunch in another city, then get the meeting, stuff done, then go back same city again. So it's one day, business.
So when you're going out and back like that, it's almost like the high-speed train's becoming like a taxi.
Yeah.
Just deliver you to the next city, you do your business, and then come back to wherever you are.
Right.
And,
so that's
very convenient.
Yeah,
very
change the people's lifestyles, living styles, also change the business models. Now it's not, China still have, of course, have a gap between the coastal city and western countries. But with this high-speed rail, those gap is getting smaller and smaller. People, will in the very near future will feel the difference between different regions will be shrink.
Yeah, and we're looking at the high-speed rail system that you have, and it's just amazing how you're really connecting such a huge country, and the terrain is quite varied throughout the country, so it's not like it's just an easy way to go out across level lands. You got huge mountains, you've got many rivers throughout, and high plateaus. So it's just amazing. It's what you've been able to do. This is going to be our last slide because we're coming up at the end here. This is the subway system in the Shenzhen metro area. Tell us about the metros and how that's really helping within the cities themselves, reducing pollution, moving people.
Yeah, metro system, the subway is another main component of a public transport system for the mega cities. China, like Beijing, Shanghai, China uses this metro as a backbone framework for supporting public transportations. For the 1 million to 3 million people city, China uses metro and light rail as a supplementary system. Those can mobilize a lot of people in short time. Also, there's not very few traffic jam or delay, something like that.
Right.
So that's an advantage with the metro systems.
That's fantastic. And Dr. Hay, thank you for being with us again. And thank you, dear viewer, for being with us as we look at China, the best ideas as we create the Emerald Planet.
I need a job.
Necesito trabajo.
I would like to speak English better.
Me gustaría hablar inglés mejor.
I want to be a U.S. citizen.
Quisiera ser ciudadano de los Estados Unidos.
For over 35 years,
Por más de 35 años,
the Hispanic Committee of Virginia has been serving our community.
el Comité Hispano de Virginia ha estado sirviendo a nuestra comunidad.
Job training and placement,
Capacitación, ayuda para conseguir trabajo,
education for children and adults,
educación para niños y adultos,
immigration, naturalization, and medical referrals.
ayuda para los procesos de inmigración y naturalización y orientación sobre médicos
Are a small part of what we do.
son solo una pequeña parte de lo que hacemos.
For help, information, or to volunteer,
Para ayuda, información o para ofrecerse como voluntario,
contact the Hispanic Committee of Virginia,
comuníquese con el Comité Hispano de Virginia,
helping everyone participate more fully in American society.
ayudando a todos a participar plenamente en la sociedad norteamericana.
Hey Lena, where's yours?
Would you notice if you were missing half your kidney function? According to the National Kidney Foundation, 20 million people have chronic kidney disease, and 20 million more may be at risk and not even know it. Anyone with high blood pressure, diabetes, or family history of chronic kidney disease is at risk. Early diagnosis is vitally important. To get the whole story, talk to your doctor and visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org or call for a free brochure. Because when it comes to chronic kidney disease, you might not know the half.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President and Executive Director of Emerald Planet, Washington, D.C., as we come to you on a weekly basis, looking around the globe in 143 different nations, looking for the technologies, the services, and the products that are moving us through the 21st century. And when we say moving, we're talking also about transportation. As we move to 9 billion souls on the planet by 2050, not only how do we feed and provide the fuel and fiber for all those people, but how are we going to actually provide them with a quality of life, move them, and in a way that actually enhances the quality of life. China is being an example of that. There's huge investments and the billions of dollars going in. And one of the advantages that China has coming late to the technology is they're leapfrogging into the high-speed rail, the supersonic rail. And we have a gentleman who's with us as an expert, and he's going to be talking about how they're moving tens of millions of people around China, out of their 1.3 billion people. His name is Haibing Ma. He is the China Program Manager and Chief Representative in China for Worldwatch Institute, which is a very famous organization. And Mr. Ma, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for being here.
I'm glad to have you here. And tell us a little bit about your work, and also let's start off with Worldwatch itself. What is the Worldwatch Institute? It's very famous, but many people may not know exactly what it does.
Okay, Worldwatch Institute is a not-for-profit think tank which is based in D.C.
It was Washington, D.C. in the U.S.
Yes, Washington, D.C. in the U.S. And it was founded in 1974. So we've been around for more than 4 decades.
Yeah, and we've been around since 1973, so we're kind of been around the same length of time. And tell us about your duties as the China Program Manager. That's a very sophisticated title that you have there, Mr. Ma.
Yeah, and my duty is kind of very broad. You know, we are a small organization with less than 30 staffs. So each one of us should have responsibilities. And our mission is to promote for a world for sustainability. So we have a lot of programs, like renewable energy development programs and climate change programs and sustainable agriculture programs. My duty is to manage all China-related programs, and I'll help design the research plans, come up with the fundraising plans, and talk to all the funders and get all the funding, and design all the research plans, and communicate with our research partners.
You're already making me tired. I tell you, that's a lot of
it's a lot of work to do.
Oh my goodness! And you're such a huge country, very complex, evolving and developing at a very rapid rate. And that segues right into what we're looking at is this high-speed engine here that we have for the rails. Tell us about the rail system in China, and why is it moving in this direction?
I think there are several reasons that China is pursuing the high-speed train. First one is very about the people's life, because China is a huge country with a population of 1.3 billion people, and as China's economy develops, the urbanization is growing fast, and more than 50% of people living in the cities, and also there's a huge flow annually from the rural city to the urban area, and again, during the Lunar Year and other holiday seasons, all those urban workers, we have to travel back to the rural areas. And so the flow is really huge, and the traditional and the old railway system just cannot afford such a flow.
Yeah, and I know being there during some of the high days, as you would call them, the holidays, it's just amazing the number of people. I mean, it's literally tens of millions of people moving all at the same time.
All at the same time.
And one of the things, I know we're talking about trains, but I was very impressed with the air system that you're developing. It's very efficient. And it's really so easy, Mr. Ma. It's almost like you go take a taxi, and yet you're going 500 or 1,000 miles away, either by the aircraft or the train. So looking at all these people, how do you organize that many people when I think almost half of your population is trying to move through these, these more enjoyable festival days?
I think during the most enjoyable festival day, like Lunar New Year of China, and it's actually about the same population travels through the railway.
Yeah.
So it's not just half of it.
It's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Looking at this sophisticated map, tell us what we're looking at here, and what is the impact both on the population as far as comfort, convenience, but also in the environment itself.
Sure. The map we are looking at is China's future network plans, the railway plans.
And these are the high speed again.
Yeah, the high
plans.
speed. On the center part is like 4 horizontal lines and 4 vertical lines, which are for the passenger high speed train only. And there are also other for cargo transportation lines as well.
I see what you're doing is then you're running parallel lines, passengers in one, and then you have the freight and any other kinds of goods or cargo is going to move totally on a separate rail line then.
Yeah.
Now is that, I understand that you have different segments of the country, it's divided, so you have the northern, southern rail systems. So are they both doing the same thing, high-speed rail for passengers and then other tracks for the freight and cargo?
Yeah, I think it's for the central part, mainly the northeastern and the northern part is focused on the passenger only thing.
I see.
Then for the western part, because the western area is still less developing in China, so there's a lot of business and new business opportunity going on. So they are developing the cargo and the freight train simultaneously.
Yeah. So what they're trying to do then, and of course this is an expansion on that, but it really gives you an idea, I think, Mr. Ma, the complexity of the system. So I know what you're doing has a lot of headaches because small staff, a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
But can you imagine all these engineers trying to figure this out to move 1.3 billion people?
Yeah, that's a lot, demand a lot of systematic controls, and that's also one of the concerns of the China's high-speed network, because there's also safety issues here. As you may have known that in July 2011, there is a major accident in China's high-speed train system. Just 2 trains just collide to each other and cause, I think, over 70 people's casualty.
Yeah, and
it's really a tragedy.
Yeah, and that's not something, even one loss of life is too much as far as this type of system.
Yeah.
And you want to engender the support of the public and allow them to feel comfortable and safe in traveling. At the same time, you have to figure out how you balance that so that you really are moving that number of people throughout the countryside. And looking at this, we have some graphics, and I'm going to let you just kind of describe some of these and what is the impact of this, and this really goes to the philosophy of where China's moving in the future as far as environment, mobility, and a comprehensive transportation system, I believe.
I think the overall goal for China's transportation is go sustainable. I think it has a meaning for different levels. Like in each urban level, you need to have more, go more for public transportation, try to reduce, the private car, the usage, and for long distance, try to, take advantage of the high-speed train system. And for your personal life, try to use more bicycles, or just walk to work. That's the ideal world. But right now, there's still some problem, especially within each city. China's city is growing so fast that each city has a potential to become a mega city. So you live on one corner of the city, but you have to work in another corner. So it's not realistic for you to try to walk there or take a bicycle there. So you have to take all the public transportation system. So that's why all the subway system also became a fashion in China right now. More than 30 cities are developing the subway system right now.
Yeah, and it's very comprehensive. And as I traveled around in Beijing for almost 2 weeks, I was using the subway system just incessantly.
Yeah.
And it's really a fantastic system.
Yeah,
and it's almost, you get to virtually almost every corner of Beijing, which is a huge city. It's a meta city, which is over 20 million people. So it's incredible. Looking at this little cartoon that you have here, I just love this. Tell us what we're seeing here, but let's get into the heart of the essence of the environmental movement in China as it deals with population but also economic development issues.
This graph is telling us it actually is a propaganda. It's calling for all the normal people try to live with like a low carbon life, or called green life, and the transportation is one part of it. And the Chinese government has put a lot of efforts into try to lower their energy consumption rate, increasing rate, and try to decrease their greenhouse gas emissions in recent years.
And you really, and look at this, you can tell they're really trying to get just the average citizen to buy into this, to be a part of it. This is a very clever graphic. I like this because you've got transportation, housing, industry, and of course this is how many people in the world would think of China, but you're really moving way beyond this.
Yeah, because China is still in the process of industrialization, hasn't accomplished all the goals of industrialization. So I guess there's still quite a long way to go, and try to, for everybody in China really live like a green life. But at least that's the goal the Chinese government, all the leaders have set for. So we just hope for, we can get on that green life as soon as possible.
Well, we're going to end up here. We're getting down. I know this is something as far as the World Future Energy Summit, and China's really focused on this, but it really boils down to future security of the nation itself, as far as reducing its carbon footprint, and also reduce the consumables. But this is what I really wanted to go to, as far as what are you doing as far as any kind of carbon credits, or working with industry so they reduce their carbon footprint?
Chinese government has initiated a huge pilot program called carbon emission trading. It set up 7 pilot regions, 5 cities and 2 provinces, and each one of them will set up this trading system, allow all the enterprise to trade their CO2 emissions, and so the overall emission reduction goal can be achieved effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, and I just love the way you're doing it as almost as a free market system as we move forward and as we work together to create the Emerald Planet.
Art, a universal language, an expression of culture, of self. And now, thanks to Empowered Women International, a way for emerging and established immigrant and refugee artists and artisans to find hope to earn a living while enriching the lives of all of us. Empowered Women International, making a better America every day. For more information on Empowered Women International's educational programs, or to make a tax-free donation, contact C. Fripp at AOL.com.
Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty.
You'd think it would be easy to tell which kids have trouble with their eyesight. But that's not always the case. Even though 1 in 4 children may have a vision problem, eye doctors tell us the symptoms aren't always so obvious. We do know that 80% of all childhood learning is visual. And without good vision, kids can have trouble learning to read and may fall behind in school. For clues on how to spot the real-life signs of childhood vision problems and what parents can do, visit checkyearly.com. A public service message from the Vision Council of America, and reading is fundamental.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we look around the globe in 143 different nations looking for the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. One of our themes is paving the way to 2050 as we prepare for 9 billion souls are going to be on the planet and how we're going to take care of all these people and provide an increasing standard of living, quality of life, rather than just an existence. China as a nation is actually going through this and experimenting in many different ways as far as how to accommodate 1.3 billion people in a very large country. Much a tradition going on there, and yet the cities are very, very modern. And as we've learned, is now the population in the cities actually exceeds those in the rural areas, and how we're tying this all together. We have one gentleman who is studying this for the Rocky Mountain Institute. His name is Matthew Mattila, who is the project manager for what's called Project Get Ready. And Matthew is going to explain that. This is an initiative in the MOVE, Mobility and Vehicle Efficiency Group of the RMI. Matthew, are you here?
I am.
Glad to have you, and you're coming in by Skype all the way from Hong Kong. And so sitting beside me is Dr. Ping He, who is the president, the International Fund for China's Environment. So if we lose you for some reason on Skype, Dr. He and I are just going to continue right along.
Hi, Matt.
Great.
Glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit about the Rocky Mountain Institute, and then we'll get into your specific work, and then we'll start talking about electric vehicles.
Okay. The Rocky Mountain Institute is a nonprofit think and do tank based out of Colorado in the U.S. The idea is to promote the efficient and sustainable and restorative use of our resources. And what we're focused on in MOVE is getting people and goods around more efficiently. And this project, Project Get Ready, helps bring together cities, utilities, automakers, and actual consumers and commuters to learn how they can deploy electric vehicles efficiently to make the best advantage of a cleaner grid.
Well, I know the Rocky Mountain Institute is very famous in the United States and actually worldwide. It's quite well known, and but you're working with countries and organizations abroad as well as the United States. What is the benefit of an organization located in the United States, North America, as far as working with a country like China or other countries around the globe?
I think the idea is, especially with the auto market, is it's a global industry, and emissions and global warming and even energy security really depends on the entire world. And so if one city or one country does it alone, it's not going to help solve any problems. And you can learn quite a bit from different cities around the world and different approaches.
Well, we have a way to show your slides as well as you sitting right there in Hong Kong. And so we want to bring up these first set of slides and talk about some of these. But we have this Project Get Ready. This is the banner that we have on the screen right now. Tell us about Project Get Ready.
So the idea behind Project Get Ready is that we're not sure the best approach to integrating these electric vehicles into the grid and into the transportation system. It's not enough just to buy and drive an electric vehicle. You really want to plug it in when it takes advantage of clean energy, when demand is low, and you want to find a place when you're driving if you start to run low on energy that you could plug it in. And it might not even be buying it, but more rental, borrowing, or even using it in a mass transit system. And so the idea is that you don't have to make your own mistakes. Project Get Ready helps integrate several dozen cities, and they learn from one another's mistakes, identify common problems, and get together on monthly calls and webinars to discuss common solutions to move forward with electric vehicles.
Well, looking at the map of the United States, and we know that you're actually in Hong Kong, so you're working with China. We'll be talking about electric vehicles there. What lessons are you learning from these various cities around the United States that actually is applicable in a country like China, which is rapidly urbanizing, but also rapidly expanding its personal vehicle fleets?
I think one of the key things we're learning actually from China is that the density of a large city helps a lot. One of the things in the US that we were mainly concerned about was this range anxiety, that if you have a fully electric car, not just a hybrid, they can only go about 100 miles on one charge or even less. And so if you're living in a large city like a Beijing, Shanghai, or New York or Chicago, you really don't drive that far every day round trip. And so these actually work quite well in urban settings, especially around the world and in places like China that have many cities with over 1 million people.
I know looking at the next slide, it says eliminating oil for transportation by 2050. And it's just almost within the last 5 years, the United States is just flipping itself right on its head as it's moving large fleet vehicles into natural gas within the cities, some electric. But I think China really is experimenting with these large buses and other kinds of large-scale vehicles for plug-ins. So tell us a little difference about the fleets that are evolving in China versus, say, the United States or maybe even Western Europe.
Yeah, I think every region approaches the problem a little differently. And I think with China, you do have a lot of people riding mass transit, and we want to encourage that. And they've even got people on electric bicycles as well. And so the transportation solutions really going to require a fleet of options. Electric vehicles won't work everywhere. You are going to need natural gas. You are going to need even more efficient gas engines, and electricity and hydrogen, I think, will really be part of the solution set for the future.
So what you're looking then is really a mix of solutions, Matt. And so it's not one solution, not one type of vehicle meets all needs then.
Yeah, we actually call it, rather than the silver bullet, the silver buckshot approach.
Well, we know what that means. So looking at the benefits to the individuals, whether they're here or China or other countries, why use electric vehicles? And not only what is the importance to the citizens using those, but also is the importance to the environment?
I think, one of the key things is to sell these cars is they're fun to drive. An electric motor is a lot different than a gas-powered motor. You've got almost 100% torque as soon as you hit that pedal, and so it's not like the golf cart that I think a lot of people are expecting. The car of the year this year, the Motor Trend car of the year, is an electric sports car, the Tesla Model S. But even if you're not the driver, I would encourage you to support them, because when you're walking down the street, to have cars no longer be these noisy things that belch emissions is really great. I usually bike or walk to work myself, and so having cars go by that are electric and not with no tailpipes and no noise is actually a pleasant experience as a walking commuter.
Well, and this is something that's coming out over. I know in Washington, D.C., I've just made it a policy, because I'm trying to keep fit at the same time. Anything that's 2 miles or less, I just set out my day so I can actually walk it and not even use mass transportation. And it sounds like you're doing the same thing as you're living over in Hong Kong and traveling into China.
Yeah, I definitely am. And living in China and coming from New York and Colorado, I realized that one of the most unpleasant things about walking is walking next to traffic where you've got idling vehicles that are spewing emissions right in your face. So it actually feels like you might be healthier riding in a car, and so I'd love to see all those cars switch to something with zero emissions.
Now, looking at the EVs themselves, what is the economy to citizens for going the electric car or using the electric bicycle, motorcycle versus using a small gasoline engine for any of the three?
Right. I think what you're going to see at first in terms of cost and fuel usage is that right now, while these vehicles are much more efficient, they're going to cost a lot more than a traditional gas-powered vehicle. And so you're going to need to own these for a while to offset the additional price. But right off the bat, year over year, your fuel costs are going to save quite a bit. And there's a range in the price and the fuel savings. So there are these micro hybrids that are really just stop-start hybrids that will save you up to 10% in fuel. And then you get into the plug-in hybrids that will save you quite a bit more, and then the full electric where you're literally not using any gasoline, and so that's zero emissions and zero gasoline costs.
When I was over in Austria last year, I spent 15 days there, and actually I had a Mercedes-Benz A-Cell e-car. It was absolutely phenomenal, but all the charging stations, or most all the charging stations, were coming from renewable energy sources, either solar, wind, or hydro, or a combination. So actually they had 200 charging stations, none of which were grid-based in any way.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think it's one of the most interesting opportunities here is that when these vehicles charge, it'll really be off-peak. And so for people who want to encourage people to use solar energy or wind energy, one of the challenges is they're intermittent. And so sometimes the sun shines or the wind blows when you don't need the energy. And so rather than spending a lot on expensive storage and batteries, you could send that into a fleet of electric vehicles.
I'm going to let Dr. Hay come up with the last question, and then I have an observation and a comment back from you, Matt, but I'm going to let Dr. Hay take the next one. Go ahead, Dr. Hay.
Matt, you think the U.S. need to import all the vehicle and technology from other countries? Now we see the roads running a lot of cars from Japan, from Korea, or sooner or later will be from China. And also electronic vehicles, hybrid technology advanced more in China than they might export to the U.S. So you see any trends U.S. will import most of those from other countries?
Yeah, I think we see electric vehicle companies in the U.S. and many spring up in China and even in Europe. But I think it's a global industry, so depending on what level you're talking about, tier one suppliers, subcomponents, batteries, I think they're really going to come from all over the world, and you really can't segment the auto industry down to one particular nation or import. The one advantage that China does have is right now they produce over 90% of these rare earth magnets that come that are required for the electric motors.
Well, Matt, thank you for being with us. We're going to have you back on the next segment, and we'll have a panel discussion, so we're going to have you stay right with us. But thank you for sharing about the electric vehicles that are going on and what's developing in China. It's very important that we have this information to know what's going on in a huge country as we work to create the Emerald Planet.
She's had more than a dozen fractures. And in the next few years, she faces 2 major surgeries to strengthen her fragile bones. She's only 10 years old. Most people don't worry about fragile bones until late in life. For those with osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bones are a concern throughout their lifetime. Find out how you can strengthen this child's future.
Diabetes is a killer. After I was diagnosed, I didn't feel sick, so I didn't listen to my doctor. Then it struck. I had a heart attack, then a stroke, and I was only 49.
Most people with diabetes also have high blood pressure and cholesterol, which can cause severe heart damage. In fact, 2 out of 3 people with diabetes die from heart disease or stroke.
Don't let diabetes destroy your life.
Call for your free diabetes survival guide. Choose to live.
to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. as we look around the globe in 140 different nations. One of those is China, of course, with 1.3 billion people. What is the impact that China is having on public transportation as far as moving that huge human group around the country, also moving goods and services at the same time, but also providing the best practices that can be shown and distributed to North America and other places on the globe. Many people think of China as being a vast user of natural resources, particularly of hydrocarbons, but at the same time it really is leading the way in renewables. And so we have a panel that's talking about the renewables, about using high-speed rail, about the development, the design of urban areas, and then also where are we going in the future as we move towards 2050 when we're adding another 2 billion souls, and the population of the Earth will be over 70% in urban areas, which makes us a much better proposition. The three people that are with me, first is Dr. Ping He, who is the president of the International Fund for China's Environment. We have Haibing Ma, who is the China Program Manager and Chief Representative of China for Worldwatch Institute, headquartered in Washington, D.C. And we have Mattila, who is Project Manager of what's called Project Get Ready. It's an initiative on mobility, and vehicle efficiency group of the Rocky Mountain Institute. Matthew is coming in by Skype out of Hong Kong, and we have our other two guests sitting in the studio. Matt, are you with us?
I am.
All right, Matt, we're going to start with you, actually, since you're coming the longest distance, so you get the prize for the longest distance being on the program. But why would the Rocky Mountain Institute, you know, you got a name like that, so you have to be out in Colorado. All of a sudden we find you in Hong Kong, and you're very actively involved in the country of China.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about transportation and really any clean tech, you look at the largest auto market is already China. And so anything you're going to do that focuses on vehicles has to be done in China. It's growing the quickest, and they've actually invested 3 times the amount that the U.S. has in infrastructure and developing these electric vehicle industry. And so we're excited to learn what we can from China and share what we've learned in the U.S. and in Western Europe as well.
Well, I think that's very important. And before I go to Dr. He, what is this program, the Mobility and Vehicle Efficiency and Project Get Ready?
So the idea behind mobility and vehicle efficiency is to get people around the world moving more efficiently. And so whether that's moving your food more efficiently via highly efficient trucks or ships, getting people walking, biking, or using cleaner mass transit. And then, of course, what we're talking about now, if you do have to use a car, how can you use cleaner fuels?
Well, we have Dr. He sitting right beside me, the IFCE, and he's a real pioneer, so I try to put that plug in for him at all times because he's been at this for many years. But looking at your work as far as IFCE, headquartered in Washington, D.C., but yet you're really very closely collaborating with China. Why this close collaboration between China, the United States, and then really out to the rest of the world?
It's important because China is a country, experienced rapid, urbanization and economic growth in the last 3 decades. Right now, it's kind of, I see, it's a turning point of because we see last 30 years of economic growth and development. Most are based on cheaper labors and cheaper resources. But now resources are limited. Resources are those resource-based, extensive resource-based economic is get to very pressure, and also environmental quality, environmental capacity has been reached to a certain point. Right now, the people are complaining more instead of Before competing in a job or something like in salary, but now they're competing more on the quality of environment, air quality and water qualities.
And also the comfort and the style of life they have throughout China, because people are not, they're no longer just subsistence. They really are thriving, the economy is growing, and they want to have more and more benefits from that growing economy.
Right. So we see the trend is we have to transfer the resource extensive growing economy to the resource saving economy. Another one is we want to develop with more clean development instead of with damage of environmental and the issue of water quality and air pollution cause health problems. So we want to change those directions from those. That's we see the trend China is experiencing right now.
Well, Haibing Ma, Program Manager and Chief Representative in China for the Worldwatch Institute, you've been seeing many changes over the years because you guys have been around almost as long as we have. 1974, we started in 1973. What are you seeing, though, in just these last 2 or 3 years that's a profound change as far as what's going on in China that really can be of benefit to the United States and the rest of the world?
I think one of the most important thing is support from the government, because as Matt has indicated, because all the clean development and the clean products like electrical vehicle and the high-speed train at the first period will have a high cost. So you need the governments to step in and provide all the subsidies, all the incentives, so all the clean market can be grown up. It's kind of problem here in the United States, right? Because there is lacking a federal clean development, systematic clean development plan. So all the solar markets and the wind markets have to, rely on individual companies. But if the government can put out systematic nationwide supporting plans, I believe the clean market here in the United States will be flourished and will provide more affordable clean products to the population in the United States.
Yeah, Matt, going to you and coming in by Skype from Hong Kong, this whole notion of subsidies and government involvement, there's a number of governments around the world where they're saying that, it really should be the free market, free enterprise. But yet, most people realize that the development of the road system in the United States and even the railroad was anything but just pure and open free enterprise or private investors. There's always been a heavy involvement by the government, both in policy but also in financing and easing the way to bring about change in society. So from the Rocky Mountain Institute and your MOVE project, how do you see the changes in North America, specifically the United States, but also in places like China, India, South Africa, Russia, and Europe as the European Union?
Yeah, I think the benefit of the investment that China and other countries are making is that as you invest in this R&D and help fund the initial buyers of these electric vehicles, that actually brings the cost down for consumers all over the world. And so as this cost of batteries starts to drop, it doesn't just affect Chinese consumers, it's a global market. And so now everyone who buys the next generation of electric vehicles will have probably a cheaper, a smaller, and a more efficient battery. And so in the US, what we've really seen the power and the focus from the government is at the city and state level. We feel like they've had a lot better opportunity to help invest and help encourage electric vehicles in their cities.
Well, the number of years, Dr. Hay, that you've been around, you've seen a huge change in China. Mm-hmm. And so we're looking at a road system here that many people in the world marvel that this one exists within China, but it's expanding every corner of the society. What do you see as far as how is this really impacting either negative or positively on the economic and the environmental development of China as we move towards 2050?
This public transportation system definitely is beneficial in multiple fronts. First of all, it's in pump the growth of development. And as I mentioned last time before, is the reduce the gap between coast city and the inner city, close the gaps, mobilize people, goods and fast and more efficiently. And another one is to those public transport systems reduce environmental pollutions, reduce environmental pressures, because as in the city right now, the air quality pollution, 60% of air pollution in urban areas is produced by the vehicles. So if we have more people ride public transit, then reduce private vehicles, then they can reduce air pollution pressure. Another one is the public transportation supporting the social equity, because not many people, especially poor people, cannot afford private cars. So if you don't have a public transportation system, then those people are not able to freely, comfortably go to work and traveling. So that's the effort the Chinese government is putting on the public transport system, because of the public, it's considered a social equity.
Well, I think that's very important. And Mr. Ma, I know through the Worldwatch Institute, you're seeing emerging markets as far as Africa, Asia, South America progress, and we only have about 40 seconds left, so this needs to be quick. But what are you seeing as far as the Worldwatch, looking around the globe, the trends that are changing and moving forward as we move towards 2050?
Trends in transportation. First one is use more and more clean energy source to power the transportation system, and the second is that they'll be integrated with urban planning, so people can reduce the transportation needs and they can use more like bicycle and walking to distance to work, so they don't have to rely on the transportation system that use a lot of energy.
Yeah, I think this is something that's very important as we move forward in the 21st century, because we're really looking for ways to clean the environment, to encourage broad-based economic development. And this is something that I know that your organizations are working on, and Matt, who's over in Hong Kong, as far as the Rocky Mountain Institute is concerned. And so it's very, very important what you're doing. And the fact you've been around for almost 40 years as far as the Worldwatch Institute, and you're going towards your 30th year. You started in the 90s.